My name is Emma Pallant and I play several characters in Punch. The main people that I play in Punch are Wendy, the probation officer, who we don't meet until later on in the play. And Wendy has a very special relationship with Jacob, who is the main character that we meet in the play. And she feels a particular affinity with him because of his autism, and her son has autism, and so she takes it upon herself to walk him through the process. I also play Jacob's mum, who we follow throughout the play, and she's an extraordinary character who I'm incredibly connected to emotionally. I feel very protective of her and I love playing her. And they're my two main sole characters. I also play Sandra, a facilitator, who again enables Jacob through part of his journey once he comes out of prison. What drew me to these roles was, I suppose, there's a breadth, a range in the characters, so it's really exciting for an actor to be given many different roles to portray within the same play. Just to be attached to such a special story is really a privilege. So the experience of playing those characters on stage every night is it's wonderful. It's such a strange feeling. So before the show, sort of trepidatious. It's quite a big show, a lot of energy needed, a lot of swift changes of thought, of energy. It's quite dynamic. Feels a bit like climbing a big mountain, just filled with energy and enthusiasm, and love feeding off the audience and my fellow company members. And it's a ride that is great. I really love it every night. When you're playing real people, there's such a different sense of responsibility to a kind of authenticity, but also you're sharing something very real, very personal. You fight their corner while you're playing them within a play. And so although there is some similarity with a fictional character, I do think there is a very special privilege and duty of care. Wendy, for example, Wendy was interviewed by Jacob on a podcast, so it was really interesting to listen to her voice, to listen how they interacted, even though it was in a formal kind of interview setting. That was really helpful to kind of have a channel to run down. Obviously the script, James has done work already on that, so you can play with what's already there. Playing Jacob's mum is a very different thing. She's obviously a real person, and her journey through the play is quite complicated. That one was much more an imaginative piece of work, and so based on Jacob's book, but also James's extraordinary writing, which is very free and emotional, and that was my main inspiration, really, for Jacob's mum. I've worked with Adam, the director, before, and I'm from Nottingham, and I've worked at Nottingham Playhouse a few times, and for me it was a very emotional place to work because that's the first theatre I really saw plays as a young person, and I just thought it was such an extraordinary story of extraordinary people, and so I was hooked from there. It's such an honour to work with a playwright that's from my home city for a start, also someone who's just extremely talented and prolific. Having seen shows of his in the past as a theatre fan myself, as well as somebody who pays attention to what's going on in the world of theatre, it's great to finally be in something of his being made from the ground up. And what I think is extraordinary about James is that he has this great ability to capture the micro and the macro. So he looks at what the country is, the nation is, the world is, things that we're talking about, thinking about, puzzled by, troubled by, and yet also will bring you to the smallest detail of someone's domestic life. I think there's something really beautiful about that in a theatre where it's made up of many, many individual people, but we are there as a collective. Also, there are huge numbers of shifts between that more explosive energy and then incredible quiet and stillness, and the quality of listening and collective listening is really unique, I think. I don't think I've ever really experienced anything quite like that as an actor in a theatre. You need a lot of breath, you need to be fit, you need to have your wits about you, and yeah, it's great. It's a really exciting evening to perform in. So it's always, whenever the lights go up, it's okay, here we go. Everyone's in it together, and that's a great thrill. I think having Punch on stage is so important, and plays like this is so important. Not only is it working class stories or stories from opposing points of view, I think it's taking a story which doesn't have a conclusion really. There is an ending, but it's not the end. And I think one of the things that's so interesting is when you leave the theatre, there are conversations still happening about that story. So people are talking about it, the things that come up for them personally, or people who disagree with one another, and that's okay. You know, you're allowed to say, I have a different point of view. You're allowed to sit with a question yourself. Would I? Could I? How did those people do that? How did they live with themselves? How would I live with myself, more importantly? And so that sort of act of empathy, but also everyone having a different point of view from the audience and taking that out into the world, I think that is really vital. The audience's journey is great to witness from the stage, actually, because from the opening moments, you're aware that you're hitting them with everything a theatre can bring. Energy, it's storytelling, there's lighting, music, movement, many characters, shifts, dynamism, a company working as a collective. So you know you're going to be leading them down this pathway of a story. And you really feel that from the stage, actually. It's really clear that they're being led down this pathway, this emotional journey, this incredible journey of a story of very ordinary people doing very extraordinary things with their life. I would hope that when people do come and see Punch, they take away a huge amount of admiration for the real people in the story, but I'm sure also an understanding that these things can come at you at any point in your life, and maybe a bit of empathy for people they've never met before, who maybe might judge ordinarily. They may take away a little bit of hope for humankind, human nature, for what humans are capable of. We made the show in the rehearsal room, but it wasn't sort of fully formed ever. We were constantly looking at different ways of portraying things. Scenes came, scenes went, sections came, sections went. Just kind of feeling out what it was going to be. Jacob was in the rehearsal room a little bit, and we had input from different creatives on that as well. And so the first time we really had an idea of what it really was when we put it in front of an audience for the first time, which was so thrilling, because that theatre means the world to me anyway, but also just to feel the energy off the audience for the first time and really start to understand that this really spoke to an audience, specifically at that point, obviously a Nottingham audience. And then when we came off stage afterwards, there was this extraordinary thing afterwards where people would just stay. They didn't really want to leave. It wasn't anything to do with the show, really. It wasn't that was great or you were good. It was something about the story. People wanted to stay and talk about the story, how it affected them, how it reminded them of someone they knew. It was really never known anything like it. And there's a sort of area outside the theatre in Nottingham where people gather in little groups after the show and talk and have a chat and meet and have wine and leave and eventually dribble away. But you'd be there an hour afterwards and it was still packed. People really want to talk about this stuff. People really want to talk. And so moving it from Nottingham to London has been amazing, to just think this very specific example of some extraordinary, unique people really does speak to people beyond this town, these people, this city, this region. It really does speak to people in England and beyond. And that's been a great journey to be a part of, to know that it has an effect on so many people. Really excited to see how it will change again and how it will evolve, and changing the space and how that will change our relationship with an audience. It's great to put this play through its paces and say, it works here, it works here. Where does it continue to work beyond that? That's really exciting as a performer, to think that it will keep growing as it expands and changes and moves to different spaces, definitely.